Power Rangers is a series that has had chronically shit luck being adapted into a 3D video game. It's had great luck being adapted into 2D video games though, as that's where Natsume came in and developed almost every 2D video game in the franchise. Some of them are excellent, some of them are okay, but none of them are terrible. The 3D Power Rangers games are terrible. I can't think of a 3D Power Ranger game that I would call good without really stretching the definition of good, and no, Power Rangers Super Legends does not count. That was a 2D game with 3D graphics. But if there were ever any specific era of gaming where there was a big push to make 3D Power Rangers games work, it would have to be the 5th generation on the PS1 and the Nintendo 64. There were 3 separate 3D Power Rangers games released during that generation, and all of them are bad, but there's a hierarchy to how bad they are. The most hilariously bad of the 3 and the worst overall is Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue on the Nintendo 64. It is unapologetically shovelware, and the cutscenes are so garbled and nonsense, seem to have been made using clip art and stickers that I got from a coloring book one time. Its most defining feature is that it has multiple game modes, but all of the game modes are so shallow and lacking in polish that they may as well not have bothered. Maybe if they pulled all their resources into making one good game mode, the game would have turned out a lot better. It's hard to put into words how little care was put into this game and its design. I'd rather be playing Superman 64, unironically, because at least that game had ambition, and when I played it, I felt like I was doing something. Next is the far less awful but still pretty bad Lightspeed Rescue for the PS1. Completely different from the Nintendo 64 version, this one was developed by Climax, which is a developer with the most hilariously interesting development history I've ever seen. But maybe we'll get into that later. This Lightspeed Rescue is just a straight up 3D beat 'em up, and it's really bad at it. It technically functions, but it's clearly one of those cases where the developers just threw a bunch of mechanics together and hoped it would all work out. It technically functions and it can be beaten, but half the mechanics don't even need to be used, and it's dull beyond all reason. It's difficult to make your way through the entire thing, not because it's just that bad or that difficult, but because it's that damn boring. There is a criminal lack of ambition and variety inherent throughout the entire game, but it's clear they at least tried far more than their Nintendo 64 counterpart. And it has some pretty bangin' fake anime music in it. And the last, but certainly not least 3D Power Rangers game of the 5th generation was Power Rangers Time Force. This one was also developed by Climax, uses much of the same game design, and presumably the same engine as Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue on the PS1, but this time instead of a beat 'em up, it's I don't know what you'd call this really. But Climax either saw what was wrong with Lightspeed Rescue and intentionally fixed it, or they accidentally fixed it by just making a bunch of changes. Combat is no longer the main focus, new mechanics are introduced every level, the game is about an hour long at max, and the main focus is now pathfinding and platforming, which frankly isn't great, but it works a lot better than what they had going previously. So in short, it's more varied than its older brother, it's more ambitious, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. That's why we're going to be playing this one instead of the other two, which aren't suitable for human consumption. It's a little depressing, I'll admit, to say that Power Rangers Time Force on the PS1 is the best 3D Power Rangers game I've seen yet, but looking at the competition, I can't really make any other call. If you know of a 3D Power Rangers game, I simply don't. I'd love to hear about it, but for now, we're going to be playing Power Rangers Time Force, the best 3D Power Rangers game. And hey, it's bad, but I didn't have a terrible time.